Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out. Emma and Dominique, thank you very much for having me. Bob Somerville, thank you very much for connecting me. So I'm here today to talk about blockchain for climate and walk you through a little bit of the work that we're doing at the Blockchain for Climate Foundation, what we're doing and how we're going to do it. And you'll see it's small and it gets big and quite garish. But I could just leave if we fully understood this picture. So can anybody tell me where the background of this picture is? Just shout it out. Thank you, yes. So it's the pyramid at the Louvre in Paris. And can anybody tell me what the glyph on the inside, which blockchain it represents? There we go. So Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain, and appropriately starry and rainbow colored. So going to tell you why this picture makes sense and really kind of explains what we're doing. So we'll start off really with why blockchain for climate? Why use this tool that's being effectively used for finance and for store of value and transfer of value and for connectivity and for a whole lot of amazing things? Why deploy that on climate? So I believe that blockchain technology will play a major role in organizing humanity to stop climate change. There's a couple key reasons why. Blockchain provides a tool to connect emission reduction opportunities to capital and demand. So if you think of those things, opportunities to get or keep carbon out of the atmosphere, demand to achieve those things, and the money to achieve those things, individually, I would say there's essentially unlimited quantity of each. So there are unlimited ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We already have the technologies of the future. We have windmills as big as a football field. We have silicon panels that we can put outside and it soaks up the energy from the sun. Like, that's crazy. We are in the future. It's important to get that. We have trees that we can plant on landscapes that used to have them and could use them to get or keep carbon out of the atmosphere. And we have a lot of forests that can be either protected lock, stock, and barrel, or managed more sustainably to keep that carbon on the landscape. So we have biofuels, we have electric vehicles, we have so many things. So I will posit that we have unlimited opportunities to reduce greenhouse gases. Next step, I believe that we have unlimited capital. I think how many people are in here and into blockchain substantially because of the promise of Bitcoin and of cryptocurrencies to be a counterpoint to unlimited printing of fiat. Is anybody into that kind of thing around here? So I think it's a major part of this space, but generally there's unlimited fiat. We can just print it. We can also make our own cryptocurrency and just print that too. But so I would say that there's fundamentally unlimited capital in the world. And then demand. I would say that there is a huge portion of humanity with a significant portion of their hopes and dreams tied up in us not seeing dangerous anthropogenic climate change. And there are, our governments say they want to do stuff, individuals work really hard on it, so I'd say that there's unlimited demand. But nonetheless, we're in a situation where greenhouse gas emissions are going up every year. Worldwide, I think they may be starting to peak and going down in a lot of places, but clearly not fast enough to solve the problem. And so it clearly leaves us looking for a solution. And I think the blockchain can play a big role in bringing those three aspects together. Now, on the why blockchain for climate, there are a lot of fundamentals of the blockchain that make a lot of sense for carbon markets and climate change. The immutability, the transparency, their verifiability, these are all a really good fit. And I come from the carbon market and developing carbon offset projects and designing the methodologies and protocols to turn action into an offset, to turn a real world outcome into an environmental or social asset that can be sold to finance those underpinnings. And so when I saw crypto, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense because we have to do the same thing off-chain a lot of the time. And then finally, the smart contracts, IoT, AI type things all can play a role in doing the monitoring, reporting, and verification of projects. So helping understand if projects about continuing to use this. So yeah, when we're doing projects, and a key part about being able to connect that capital to a project is being able to report we have achieved these outcomes in emission reductions from our project, and we're able to unitize them and itemize them, and then buy, sell, or trade them. And so being able to use these tools, connect them via the blockchain, also is really helpful for doing new and further projects. Item two is around collaboration. So international collaboration, and ultimately the Paris Agreement, will be supported by the transparency, security, and resilience aspects of the blockchain that allow all the countries of the world to overcome their barriers to collaboration. And that's really what I want to talk about. And at the end of the day, our goal is to be able to connect all of the countries around the world, connect their carbon accounts to enable and catalyze investment in emissions reductions across borders. And fundamentally, that's the tool that we're trying to build here. So we founded the Blockchain for Climate Foundation here in Vancouver. And we're a BC nonprofit, and we've been developing across a few tracks. And our team actually came together before we figured out how we were going to put the Paris Agreement on the blockchain. So pretty early in going down the crypto rabbit hole, I realized, well, this is the killer app for blockchain vis-a-vis climate, but I have no idea how we're going to do this. And so was kind of left working on other aspects of things in the space and advising and supporting organizations that were putting carbon offsets on the blockchain and that kind of thing. But then really what really happened was the first foot that fell was right here in Vancouver with the creation of CryptoKitties and ERC 721 non-fungible tokens. I had my sort of next aha about how we might go about putting the Paris Agreement on the blockchain. Now, to back up, the fundamental unit of the Paris Agreement, or of the carbon market, is 1 ton of carbon dioxide that's been gotten or kept out of the atmosphere. So in the carbon markets, we think of that as a carbon offset. In the parlance of the Paris Agreement, they're actually called internationally transferred mitigation outcomes, recognizing that some will come from offsets and some will come from other verified outcomes in a national carbon account. And please feel free to ask later or offline if you're interested in more of these details, because they're gory and they go on. But at the end of the day, I recognized there's going to be billions of tons of carbon transacted in this market under the Paris Agreement, and they will be fundamentally coming from hundreds, thousands, millions, potentially, definitely thousands, probably millions of different sources. From different offset projects, from all of the national governments of the world, around 195, and from different types of outcomes. And at the end of the day, we need to be able to have them all be clumped together and be able to flow as there's transfer of these carbon outcomes across borders. And so my guidance to our lead blockchain developer and partner in this project, Matt Lockyer, was we need to be able to pick up this unit of carbon off of the ground and look at it and figure out where it was made, what project it's from, what year it was created, and how do we find the audit documents to know that, that it really happened. And so with fungible tokens, I really couldn't figure out how we do it, because there are projects out there putting carbon offsets on the blockchain that are creating a different ERC20 token for each project. Now this is really smart, and it works at a small and medium scale, because you can pack all of the audit and verification data in at sort of the ERC20 token level, not the individual token, but the named token level. And so maybe your one project, one token would issue 50,000 coins this year, and then you'd always know that they came from that project. So that's good. You can do that traceability. But once you have a dozen or 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 different projects, if you had 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 different coins, it would be a big jumble and it wouldn't be helpful. And so we knew that we needed to pack more data in at the individual token level. And when CryptoKitties came along, adorable, breedable kittens on the internet, we're like, all right, we can see how we would do this. Just pack all that data in there, and then we can put it into the big pile of tokens to transfer, and we're set. And then I tried to sell a couple CryptoKitties and breed another few, and there were 30,000 transactions ahead of me or whatever on the Ethereum blockchain, and couldn't transact anything for days, because you can only transfer ERC 721 tokens one at a time, at least at that point. And so it was kind of a one step forward, two step back, because that's not going to be the solution for connecting all of the global carbon economies of the world. And so didn't really know what we'd do and kind of put it on the back burner until a meeting with Matt this spring, when he told me about his publishing of ERC 998 crypto composables. Who here has heard about ERC 998 and crypto composable tokens? Not many people. Okay. Fascinating. Who here's heard about ERC 721 tokens? Okay. So ERC 998 is really cool because basically it allows you to create a token that can hold and own other tokens, both non-fungible tokens and fungible tokens. And so you can think about having a CryptoKitty own a food bowl token and 8 bags of food, 8 bag of food tokens. It could maybe own some other, kitty slaves, or whatever, or it could own Bitcoin. And you could move all of the belongings of that cat and the cat in one transfer with one gas transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. And so this was the big aha, where I'm like, great, we can have a hierarchical relationship of tokens and data, and potentially have a country token holding a project token holding individual ton tokens that would allow us to do batch transfers just by sending something up the hierarchy over. And so this was kind of the ticket, and so we've been working on building this out since then. And for those people that are interested right now, the way we're thinking about the data that we put in that token is country level, project level, vintage level, or at least vintage information unit, and then also transaction history. And I get a bit more into the Paris Agreement on the next slide. But fundamentally, in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change system, the UN system that Paris is a part of, it's national governments that really have the sovereign right to the emissions and the emission reductions of each country. And so they have a say on how their carbon units can be transferred in and out of country, which is going to be a big, hairy, interesting thing, and it's partly why it's important to start building this tool right now, so that it can be amenable to making all of that happen. But the blockchain aspect of being able to track where this token has been and all of the permissions to move in and out of national accounts is a key part of its design. This is my CryptoKitty, by the way. This is not my market stalls. So putting the Paris Agreement on the blockchain. So we talked a little bit about the technology that we're hoping to use, and I would love to tell you a little bit more about the Paris Agreement and the system in which we're trying to fit. Who here has heard about the Paris Agreement before? Just for fun, is there anyone here who doesn't believe in climate change? All right. Bob Summerwell, grab him. So the Paris Agreement is, I would say, a pretty amazing achievement of humanity, because what happened is at this specific point in time, in December 2015, all of the countries in the world, I think except Syria, came together and said, we commit to working together to address climate change. And when people say, hey, what about the United States? What about these things? What about somebody emitting too much? I'm like, these are all important realities, but it is also an important reality that everybody committed to do something, and it's worthwhile to work on leveraging that commitment and the planning and the work that comes out of that, because there will always be, I would have said it's impossible to have everybody commit to do that, because there will always be changes in government, changes in national interest, changes in perceived national interest. And so we're working on supporting the Paris Agreement and its goals. And along with that commitment to do something, how that happens was that all of the countries in the world committed to connect their national carbon accounts under Articles 6.2 and 6.4 of the Paris Agreement, which would enable transfer of carbon emission reduction outcomes across borders. So why does that matter? Who here has heard of the Kyoto Protocol? So under the Kyoto Protocol, that's great. So under the Kyoto Protocol, which I think was a really amazing tool, there was an ability to create carbon offsets to finance emission reductions in one country, generally a developing country, with money or technology transfer from the developed world, to create a carbon credit and then to bring it back to the investing country and use that against its carbon commitments and allow it to lower its emissions when you add up all the tally. So this was really neat, and it got a lot of really interesting projects moving, and it got a lot of emissions reduced. But it was only a part way there because it was really a single entry bookkeeping. You created and transferred a credit, but did not create a corresponding debit. And so pretty much everybody knows that that will not make the books balance, and it clearly can't be the end point. So what the Paris Agreement fundamentally is doing is it's because now every single country in the world is committed to reducing its emissions, there needs to be a double entry bookkeeping because there is no outside of the system that you can trade from and into. And so this is one of those killer aspects of the blockchain, is the ability to do a double entry bookkeeping and really a triple entry bookkeeping if you count timestamp as that third entry to track all of the emission reduction outcomes as they come and go across borders. So they are planning on building a tool for this. You know, originally it was going to be a non-blockchain enabled tool and pivoting off the international transaction log and a lot of work that's already there. But we've seen that we may be able to speed this up by a few years, catalyze development a lot sooner, and make a tool that is transparent and more user-friendly to use. We want it to be able to be held outside of the technocrat realm, of which I would include myself, and have people be able to open up their Balance wallet or whatever wallet and either look at what they may have tokens-wise or look at what their country has, look at what the performance of their government is just using these tools and this infrastructure. So it is a bit of an aside, but we're working on the Ethereum blockchain, and we're really passionate about we're also doing this open source, and we're really excited to be building on and building in an ecosystem where there's lots and lots of developers working every day to create new tools, to create new pathways, and create new infrastructure. And this is also a lot of my pitch to sort of countries in the UNFCCC, is that when you build something bespoke, you build it custom and it sort of lives within your walled garden, it's hard to keep that updated. It's hard to have it be fluid. It's hard to have enough money to make it work like Gmail or like the things we use in our normal consumer realm. And so I think, and I'm hopeful that building on the backs of all that work will help make this a lot better. We are engaging with national governments as essentially our end user, our key user. As I'd mentioned, there is a sort of sovereign right to the emissions, and governments at this point have a say if units can be traded in and out of their country. And so we're working on building a working group of around a half dozen countries that see the value of what we're doing, that are interested in potentially using the tool. When I started this up, my goal was to convince 6 countries to let us convince them to use our tool in a very nice Canadian kind of thought process, and then was quickly reminded that they all get it, they're all really interested, and they want to help. And so we're working on building up that group and kind of putting something into motion, which is kind of it's amazing, but also kind of daunting to be working at this level and with these governments, but people have shown themselves to be quite interested. And really, why are we doing this? Once again, it's to catalyze action. Right now, everybody's committed to do stuff. It's almost 3 years out from Paris, but there's almost no investment in emission reductions to be traded in this system because the system's not ready yet, and so we want to get it moving. Our interest really has been at that international level for a lot of reasons, including that though it'll be complex, it's going to be way simpler than all 195 different countries and how they spool up their national carbon accounts, how they integrate carbon offsets. And so we figured we'd work at this top level first, and it kind of feels clean and clear and under control. But it actually seems like people are really interested in doing it at the country level and at the project level as well. And so we are looking at doing this, doing a pilot at the Canadian level, feeding in all of the existing Canadian data around the carbon account, and kind of doing a test net for this, which has significant interest. So yeah, we're here in Vancouver. We're a team of 5 that have sort of been kind of trying to keep it tight and think about this and develop out the concept. And we're switching gears now to start building the team out, make tracks on the technology development, formalize some of the government engagement, and really get moving. We are trying to get a minimum viable product sort of demo together before COP24 in Poland. So COP, Conference of the Parties, is the annual big UN climate meeting. So we want to be able to show what we're doing there. We're working on that national party, UN, and multilateral engagement. And then we're also working on the funding structure and pathways. So I come from the commercial world in developing projects that get or keep carbon out of the atmosphere, and though it exists with a lot of support of governments and nonprofits, I've always been on the commercial side, and so I'm trying to learn as fast as I can and really interested in people's insights when they look at this and learn about what we're doing, how we might do all sorts of things, including how we might fundraise best and be strategic about bringing money in a way, because at the end of the day, we need to be trusted by all of the countries around the world. That's why we're doing this that's our goal in doing this as a not-for-profit foundation open source, to build enough of the tool in an open and trusted way that all the governments in the world can feel comfortable signing on to it. And so we're trying to keep that in mind, but not to get too high on the hog about that as well as we raise funds, and judiciously growing out our team and advisory. So I really appreciate your attention, and I think we probably have a couple minutes for questions, and either reach out to me here or in the future if you have any insights about how we might do this better. And follow us at Block for Climate on Twitter, because we all know that crypto Twitter is the place to be. Thank you very much. Absolutely. So the Canadian government, we've told some of their team, and they said, we're not able to commit to be a part of it, but please keep us in the loop about it. They're actually one of the most important countries in this sort of ITMO and Article 6 of the Paris Agreement space, because they brought a lot of that to the table in Paris. So we'll be keeping them in touch, but some of the other national governments we've spoken to are very interested. And governments that are trading countries, governments that are interested in blockchain have sort of been natural targets, and we also want to build a little bit of a representativeness around sort of developing, small island states. We haven't really, I think it'll probably be organic at the end of the day. You can do your best to be strategic, and then what comes. But yeah, governments get this, and the people who are working on this type of thing on the UN stuff in these governments totally get it and have been really quite supportive. And the UN is interested. They're supporting the Climate Chain Coalition, which is a group of about 80 organizations working at the nexus of climate and blockchain. And they're an observer and a participant in that because they see that this might be a really great tool. And our job is to have them do it open source, Ethereum-based, public, transparent, rather than just spooling up a private blockchain and hosting it in Bonn and doing it there. Yeah, definitely. And it's really easy and semantically easy to say we're going to connect all of the countries in the world on the blockchain, and that is our goal. But we recognize that that may not come to pass for a variety of reasons. And so One of the interesting things about the Paris Agreement and the Paris Rulebook is that it's actually not even fully written yet. They had a special session in September in Bangkok, trying to get the text together to negotiate in Katowice, Poland this year. And so that is one of the things we're looking at, is how does this roll out if it's only partially adopted? I think that that's fine, because there are going to be a lot of, at least a couple junctures from off-chain to on-chain, or from chain to chain, or database to chain, and maybe back to database. So I think that it's not a reason to not develop this, and we are hip to that reality, and a lot will come out of negotiations that we have essentially no ability to drive. But we do want to build a tool that is able to capture everyone if they want to, or be able to have inputs and interfaces on and then probably off as well. All right. Well, thank you very much for your questions. I'll be around, and have a great afternoon.